We're going to use gallery contracts as a way to frame a conversation about the relationship between artists and galleries. Hopefully, the gallery you're working with has a contract. They are becoming more common, but it's still not universal. A lot of people get into the arts who don't like rules. You can try to write up a gallery agreement yourself, but the gallery might not go along. At a minimum, you do absolutely need, to get them to sign a consignment log or inventory whenever you drop off work. You want to have a piece of paper, physical paper, a responsible party has signed that shows that they've got your work. In the vast majority of cases, you're going to have a perfectly fine working relationship. But every artist has heard horror stories of the gallery that closed and tried to never give the work back. So definitely get an inventory or consignment sheet signed. For everything else, if you don't have a contract, ask a lot of questions. It might be easier to ask over email. One, because it saves you the awkward face-to-face conversation, but more importantly, two, it gives you the equivalent of a paper trail to look back to should any disagreements arise. We're going to be looking at the contract that I had with Translations Gallery. This is now about 10 years old, and the gallery has since closed. But it's a good template to look at because it's definitely one that was written by a lawyer. Speaking of lawyers, should you ever have a dispute, there's an organization you should know about. It's the Volunteer Lawyers and Accountants for the Arts, VLAA, professionals who are willing to donate their time to artists in times of trouble. A standard contract should start by defining the parties, who's involved. This is where they're going to name everybody and then change their name. Here, they define that Translations Gallery is the company, and they're going to call it Gallery for the rest of the contract. Similarly, they have a place for you to define your name as the artist, but then they just say artist for the rest of it. Once you've defined who the parties involved are, you want to look for the part of the contract where they're defining their agency, essentially their legal right to act on your behalf. What you as the artist want to know is not only that they will act on your behalf, but where. To make a career in the arts, you're likely to need to work with multiple galleries. Given the increasing importance of the internet as a means for selling art, defining their territory, either literally and geographically or economically and online, is going to be really important. In this case, the gallery was saying that they would be the only representation for my work in the state of Colorado. Some galleries are going to expect a wider footprint, the entire Rocky Mountain region or the Western United States, or intergalactic domination. You don't want to risk the current relationship that you have with a gallery while you're pursuing another one. Most galleries in a place like Denver will actually encourage you to have relationships with other galleries around the country. They want you doing the work of boosting your career. Unlike a lot of retail spaces, the gallery isn't buying your work and then turning around and selling it at a higher price. They're doing what's called consignment. They will host the work on your behalf and try to sell it and then split the proceeds. When they define that they are working on consignment, you also want to see how they're splitting the commission. Industry practice with commercial galleries is to have a 50-50 split. Whatever the retail price is, you divide it in half. The gallery keeps half and the artist gets half. There are some complicating factors about this that we'll talk about. Also, ideally, they're going to tell you how long it's going to take for you to get paid. In this case, they're going for 30 days after the sale. When working with galleries, try to avoid the ones that never pay you. Some gallery contracts will have a duration stipulated, essentially defining how long the relationship is going to last. Often you'll be on a short-term contract, and then it'll get progressively longer as it comes time for renewing. If a gallery closes, does that automatically terminate the contract? Or are you still beholden to that relationship even though they no longer have a physical presence? This is important because galleries go out of business all the time, and you want to know whether or not you can try to find another one. Hopefully there's a clear agreement about shipping, who pays, and when. It's fairly common that you will be expected to pay to get the work to them, and then they would be expected to get the work back to you. Some galleries will add exceptions, though. For instance, if you're specifically requesting the work back, they might ask you to pay the shipping, on the idea that they were still trying to sell it and shouldn't have to bear the burden of that expense. A big theme as we're looking through this contract is that both sides tend to assume what is best for them, without necessarily even intending to rip the other person off. It makes perfect sense for the gallery that you would get the work to them and from them because they're trying to minimize their expenses as much as they can. Whereas you're doing the same thing, but in the opposite direction. You want to make sure that the gallery has insurance. Ideally, it's what's called wall-to-wall insurance, which means that it would cover the transportation from your home to their home. But a lot of galleries will have only on-site insurance. It's important for you to know whether or not their insurance covers the shipping portion, because that could save you from having to buy the insurance through your shipping carrier. If you've got a long lead time and you know when you're going to be shipping, you might contact your home or renter's insurance company and see if you can get a short-term rider extending insurance to work that you're transporting. Sometimes it'll be either more comprehensive or at least cheaper than the kind of shipping insurance that you can get through the carrier. As the artist, you should retain the copyright for your images. You do give the gallery permission to use your image for things like promotion, but even after the work is sold, you should still retain the copyright, which is to say that whoever buys the work can't just start making posters or coffee cups with your image on them. Remember how I said we were going to come back to prices, even if it was defined in the consignment section? Well, here we go. Usually, it's 50-50 as a split, unless you're working with a nonprofit, in which case 70-30, 70 going to the artist, or 60-40, 60 going to the artist, are fairly common because, again, they're nonprofit. No matter who you're working with, though, you want to have clarity on some of the issues that can come up. Galleries will frequently give discounts, either to interior designers or other collectors that they work with a lot. If they give a 10% discount to a designer, does that 10% get split evenly between the two of you, or does it come out of their 50%? How do you handle the gallery working with you and a third party? An art placement agency like 9dot Arts might be the one who's actually charging the client who winds up with the work. They don't necessarily have to follow the same prices that you and the gallery have agreed to. If they charge more or less, how is that divided out? Most galleries will assume that you are absorbing the cost of framing, but sometimes they will let you specify. If you have a work of art that you are hoping to get $250 for, and you spend $100 getting it framed, are you going to make the retail price $600, $250 plus $250 plus the $100 for the frame? Or are you going to make the retail price $700, where you account for the $100 that you spent by adding it to the amount that you're hoping to receive from the gallery? They're still going to double that number. It's not even that there's one correct way to do this and everybody else is a scam. It's just you want to make sure that you have conversations about these things. Hopefully, when they pay you, they'll give you a bill of sale. When I worked at galleries, we went ahead and shared the contact information for the patron with the artist. But a lot of galleries are very protective of their clients' contact information. The assignment, the amendments, the integration. These tend to be legal definitions that explain the limits of the contract or how it can be modified should you agree to change the terms. You want to know about the severability. If they aren't keeping up their end, or if you aren't keeping up yours, under what circumstances do they have the right to end the contract? You do want to see if there's any language about forum selection or governing law or an agreement to arbitration. If everything goes south, often your only recourse is to threaten to sue. If they've already got a contract where you agreed to arbitration, then you're not going to be able to sue, though you can still plead your case in front of the arbitrator. Hopefully none of this will come up, but if it does, that's when you contact the volunteer lawyers and accountants for the arts. With the contract, make sure that you get a copy that is signed. Galleries are so worried about getting your signature that sometimes they're a little bit slow in getting a copy back to you. The last page of the contract that I had with Translations Gallery was their version of the consignment record. You can see that we're listing the title and description of the work, its dimensions and date of completion, and then a wholesale price and a suggested retail price. Notice the way in which they're saying suggested retail, because they could theoretically change it. The wholesale price is what you are hoping to get paid. An ethical gallery isn't going to triple your wholesale price and only give you back the wholesale price while keeping the other 2/3, but you do want to allow them at least some flexibility for altering prices. either because they're making a deal with someone or because your work has been so successful that they can raise the prices. If you don't have a contract with your gallery, create a consignment record, and when you drop off the work, try to get them to sign it. When you're likely to have work in multiple places, you need a paper trail. I'm probably making this sound scarier than it actually is. Almost all of the time, the people who work in galleries because they love art and they want to support artists. If you have a contract, make sure that you understand what it says. And if you don't have a contract, make sure that you ask lots of questions just so that everybody's on the same non-existent page.